There we go. Good to go.
Good evening, everyone. This is Hererico, Chairman of the Wellington Board of Education, and this is our December 8th, 2020 virtual meeting. We're using Zoom. We're starting the meeting at about 7 o'clock. The next item, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Usually we stand up for this and just go through the Pledge of Allegiance where we are. If everyone would do that. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The next order of business is person to speak. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to say a few words. We limit you to 3 or 4 minutes, and but we will listen to you, but we probably will not make comments regarding what you say. Whatever you say, make sure that it is appropriate and does not bring in anything regarding personnel.
So if there's anyone that is present to speak, if you are on a computer and you want to raise your hand on the participants area, there's only a few people here, and I see one on camera. Yep. All right, I think you're good.
Okay, then the next item on business is the chairman's report. I do not have very much to report, except that I would like to thank the staff for all of their efforts during the past months during the pandemic. We know that it's very difficult teaching online, in person, and then switching back and forth. And we just want you to know that we appreciate what you are doing, and hopefully in the near future, when we start controlling the COVID-19 pandemic, that we'll get back to a normal situation wherein everyone is in school together. Thank you very much for all of your service. Next item on the agenda is the communications. I do have a couple of items. One is from the superintendent to board members. Says, I guess I will read it. Maybe I won't read it because I think the board members have received this, but the letter details some information on the CIP documents in regard to the projects at Hall School and Center School. We were in the process of assessing the sidewalks and the parking areas, and the letter outlines some of the options that the board has in regard to that. And that's an ongoing item with us, and we'll probably address that this evening, but it is on the agenda, and we are hoping to do something about that to improve the parking area for safety purposes. In addition to that, I also have another letter, and this one is addressed to me. It says, "Dear Mr. Errico, we are writing to formally request that you call a special meeting on the provision of behavioral and mental health services for Wellington Public School students. A special meeting planned for November 4th for this topic was canceled without a reason being given and has not yet been rescheduled. Therefore, we are writing to ask you to do so. Thank you for your time and your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Michelle Cunningham, Tracy Anderson, Annie Groshine, and Laura Rodriguez. Also, there was a CC to Donna Cook, Elaine Dester and the first selectman and the superintendent. The next order of business is the superintendent report.
Herb, I think we have one more communication. We had gotten a communication from WEA that I wanted to make sure. There was an email from WEA. I think that letter went out to all of you.
Couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was about pre-Thanksgiving, November 19th. It doesn't have to be read. I mean, it's just another communication that we can accept if you want to, however you want to do it.
Yeah, we can, you have a copy of that, do you?
I do.
Okay. We'll insert that copy into the minutes of the meeting if there's no one that objects. Okay, thank you, Phil, for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next item is the superintendent's report, and there are 4 items under this item: enrollment update, COVID-19 school operations, the Wellington Emergency Communication Task Force, and also the center school and all school roof projects. Okay.
Tried to keep this short tonight because I think it's a long agenda. So we had some shifts in our enrollment with new students moving in. Some students have moved to fully remote, and some students are returning to on-campus learning. If you have looked at, if you're like to follow real estate, I think there's one house for sale right now in town, one. So there's a lot of sales going on for things that are out there, and we still have students moving in, which is pretty exciting. Our current enrollment at center school is 205 students, with 166 students learning on campus, and we have 39 students learning fully remote. Our current enrollment at Hall is 196 students, with 139 students learning on campus and 57 students learning fully remote. We had 5 students at center school recently moved to remote learning after our 2-week closure. And we had 11 students from Hall School move to fully remote. So right now we're about 24%, right around that number, that are learning remotely. Again, those folks have made that decision. Those families have made that decision to do that. I do know that I mentioned this earlier. There are many families that are just trying to keep their children and their families healthy for the holiday season. And many of the people that recently moved to remote stated that they would be back after New Year's. So it is what it is.
So our enrollment is down slightly.
We're at 401 total right now. That's what our total enrollment is.
About 411?
401. 401.
401.
Yep. The COVID-19 school operations, I will tell you that the month of November is always a little wild just because of the holiday and the minimum days and stuff. It was an extremely busy month for us. We had 4 COVID-related incidents. There were 2 positive cases in district. We had 2 close contacts that were identified, so that was the 4 incidents. The contact tracing that occurred for each of those cases, again, it's extensive. It's very time consuming. It often takes days and several communications. We moved to remote learning for 8 days, starting November 23rd through December 4th. And it was because of a shortage of staff. The number of staff that we had either out just waiting for tests, or that had to quarantine because they were close contact, was extensive. And so we had 8 days out. The first week was that Thanksgiving week, so it was the 3 minimum days. Monday and Tuesday were conferences. The staff did their conferences from home. It worked really well. And then just want to say that, and this echoes kind of what Herb said, I just want to send out a heartfelt thank you to all of our staff for their effort this year. You know, we announced on Saturday before, that we were going to move to remote learning, and that was November 21st. That letter went out later on in the evening because of the amount of time it took to do the contact tracing. And we announced that we were going to open our buildings on Sunday to any staff members that wanted to come in and make any adjustments to student supply bins. Staff did not have to, but I will tell you, we had an overwhelming turnout. The Army came through, they packed student bins. The administrative team was there. It was pretty incredible. It was stressful, just because of, people want everything to go very well. But it was very efficient. We had, I would say, probably close to 95% of our student bins were picked up by families on Sunday night. And just again, wanted to thank the teachers. They volunteered their time on that Sunday, and it just demonstrates their dedication to the district. And we started remote learning that next day on Monday morning. And again, our remote learning plan looks significantly different than what it looked like last March, and it's going well. We've gotten good feedback. There are still hiccups because remote learning is not a perfect science right now. It does not work for everyone, but the staff is working extremely hard to meet the diverse student needs that are out. We will continue to monitor our staff and the regional cases, that are around. Obviously, if you've watched the news, it's COVID-19 is very prevalent. What we are doing for mitigation factors appears to be working. Talked to the superintendent in a different district the other day. They have over 100 cases in their district, and they don't have a single example of where they had a positive case in their school transmit to someone else. And they figure that out through the contact tracing. So that tells us our mitigation strategies, mask wearing, social distancing, all of those things that we're doing, the cleaning routines, they're working. And we hope we can stay open for as long as we can for on-campus learning. We have installed all the air purifiers at Hall School, so that's going well. The ventilation project at Center School to extend the exhaust system down to the last 2 classrooms, that is completed. MCOR completed that work, and so the exhaust is in good shape at Center. I also want to extend my sincere gratitude for the Public Works Department. They took on a huge role installing our carports for us. It took days and days and days. They joked about the thousands and thousands of screws that they had to use for the roofs. But they saved the district and saved the town probably close to $16,000. It was about $4,000 to $4,500 per installation per building. And they did it for us. They built it into their time doing different things. They built on a rainy day where it's harder for them to go out and do the things. They actually built them in their shop and transported them to the school. So just a big shout out to them and Troy and his team. They have a couple minor things left to do at Hall School, but hats off to them for their work. I appreciate it. Item C, the Emergency Communications Task Force meeting. We met on November 18th, and we had a presentation for a product called Everbridge. The committees were meeting again tomorrow night. We're going to review the 2 products and have some conversation about pros and cons for each and which one we, kind of are leaning towards and why. We'll also be discussing what questions to ask residents for the types of emergency communications they expect from the town. And then we're also going to be reviewing notification protocols for surrounding towns. There are protocols that other towns already have in place. When would a message go out? What is it canned? All that information. So that will be part of tomorrow night's meeting. I believe that meeting's at 6:30 on the Zoom.
Now, are we going in to this project with Everbridge with the town? In other words, if they set up a system for us, will the town be on the same system?
So this emergency communication is really meant to be for the town. It's something that we could determine, whatever that committee recommends. Obviously, there's a cost to it. Whatever the committee recommends, the board can say, wow, if the product is right and we can piggyback on it and use it, it may make sense. If the product doesn't do the things that our school messenger system does, then we may want to have our own product to be able to send out our messages as we normally do. But time will tell. There's different versions and different layers of each product, of how much. It's like, if you buy this, you get this. If you add this, you get this much more. It depends on what level they subscribe to, or if at all, if any. But the real piece to this is meant to be for emergencies. Something that happens in town, and they could use it for a major power outage. They could use it for a major accident that closes one of our through roads. A huge fire in town that's I would say a wildfire, but you get the sense. Some sort of emergency, and that's the intent.
Yeah, but how would that work with the town? The town has their emergencies. On the other hand, the school system would have theirs. Would they be two separate messages that we could put on the system? How does that work?
So they would really be responsible for putting out any town communications, but just as we do now, we collaborate. So, I'm in the emergency operations center. When we have significant power outages or we have a storm, I'm down there, with Erica and Stu Cobb as our emergency management director, and any decisions, that we're making when we open the schools, they use their system. We could piggyback, we could provide other things. Ours is really only meant, we only get to send messages to our students and families. We don't have access to the public because our database comes from our student operating system.
And the cost is shared?
I don't believe the cost is shared right now. I think the cost is going to be on the town, unless we decide that, we wanted to, it was going to be worthwhile for, us to use this, the board to use. That's the plan at this point. It's too early to tell which direction, because we've only really had presentations on the products. We haven't had been able to really weigh in on the long-term, investment of it. It's got to be able to do what the town is looking for us to be able to do. And I'm the rep for the board.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the board has a cost, unless we decided something we were going to share. It was just one of those things that I think, and I believe it was Erica, as first select woman, thought it was a good idea for the Board of Ed to have representation, just because we communicate so regularly on those things when there's an emergency. We want to make sure our families know what's going on too.
When you say communicate, you're communicating to their cell phone. They don't communicate to landline, because there are not too many people that have those.
Correct. There's different levels of subscription. So you could buy lists. You could have people sign on. So, it's almost like a membership drive. Like, you would want to make sure that as many people sign up for the CT alert as possible. And then they're on the list and you can access that. The whole piece behind it that's super important is to constantly update that list. And the committee knows that it has to be a regular process, because as people move in, you want them to be part of that list, so they get the message when it's when there's an emergency.
So they can pinpoint just the residents in the town of Wellington.
They can do, they have there's different kind of mapping that they can do. They can pick a road, and that's, each of the systems has their own way to do it, but that's the idea behind it. If there was something in one section of town and they wanted to just draw a circle around it, they could send a message to those families. If they wanted to send it town-wide, that's the intent of it at this point in time.
And I have a lot of questions, but you're going to meet with them again anyway. But
I'll have more information, Herb, after tomorrow night. Once we see which direction the committee's going. And I think it's also important. The committee really thought that it's important to survey and you should all be looking for this, to survey the public to determine what type of emergency communications people want. You know, do you want it on your cell phone? Do you want a recorded message? You know, there was several questions that we were going to be going through to determine what types of communications people would want.
Now, what is that code red that they talked about?
That's another product.
Another product?
Yeah, that's the other product. It's right now Everbridge and Code Red are the two products that we've had that we've seen examples for.
Now, they could call anytime. Could be day or night.
They could, and that's what part of the protocols are about, that, you know, you don't necessarily want to send out an emergency communication at 1 a.m. that says, you know, all the power is out or the road is closed in a certain section of town if it's 1 a.m. because most people are not going to be going through there anyways. So that's part of the policies and the protocols that other towns have that we're going to be reviewing as well.
Okay, I only have one other question.
Yeah.
Because this is new to me. I knew that this was out there, but to participate may be a good idea, it may not be. Depends on what kind of service we get and what you finally find out from them. What is the, what do they call it? The geofence?
Yeah, sure. So the geofence is basically if there was something at a certain section of town, and not all products have that. I believe both of these products do, and Erica's on the line if she wanted to chime in. She can raise her hand and if I miss something. But geofencing basically means that you know, if something happens in a specific part of town, they can use their system to basically draw a circle around that area. We want to hit these streets. Anybody that lives in this area, we're going to send out the message to these folks, and that's part of the geofencing. It's very handy when you have an emergency incident in one specific area and you want to tell those people right away. And so that's what
State police have something like that.
Correct, they do.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. Thank
It
you.
is. It is. All right. My last item for my update was the roof projects. So the request for the proposals for the owner's project manager is at the Department of Administrative Services website. It's out there. My timeline, I expect all the proposals to be in a couple weeks. My timeline was a little short. I thought we were going to have more time, but we have to have time for questions as part of the process. And we have to basically interview any contractors, so that if you were going to make a recommendation for someone, you have to go through. I wouldn't be making that recommendation. You would be. I talked to the same group I've talked to before about just the timeline and process, and would it be an issue with a January appointment if you went that route? They said no. So my question to you is, your committee for the building committee is the entire board. I don't know if you want to do an ad hoc committee for this, or if you wanted to use the finance committee. So when all of those, and I don't know how many we're going to get, I have no idea. But when we get those proposals in, you're going to want to review those. And if we're, you know, if I don't know if you have a cut point to say, wow, that's going to be way too expensive, and just not do anything from there. But it would take a group, and it could be the finance committee, to go through them. And if you wanted to interview any of the agencies that were, or the groups that submit their bids, you could do that and then determine from there that you would make a recommendation to the board in January. Again, it would have to be part of the money that's already allotted. But we have to follow this specific process for this RFP for it to apply for to be eligible for the grant. So finance committee or whole board, that's up to you. And I'm not sure, Herb, I'm not sure how you want to handle that.
Well, I don't know. Either way is fine with me, but maybe on something like this, the participation of the whole board might be a good way to go, if it doesn't become too cumbersome, and if everyone can make another meeting because this was going to take quite a bit of time and energy.
Yeah, typically, and Ann has her hand raised, Catherine, if you want to unmute her while I talk. Typically, when you interview a prospective company, it's not typically the entire board, but it could be, especially now because it would be through Zoom. You could do this the first week of January when we return from break, do your interviews, and then you basically just say at that point, you have it on your next agenda. And if you want to approve it, you would approve it that night in your regular meeting in January, and you would move on from there. And basically we would get them on board the next day. So, but that's up to you. It just means it's another meeting for you in a month where we're going to be doing budget meetings as well.
Well, any comments from the board members?
Yes, I have a comment, Herb.
Yeah.
Do I remember something about reimbursement and if we build a new building? Was there an issue about that, Phil? Reimbursement for this?
For sure, yes. We're
Okay,
supposed to
would
sign
you
off.
explain that again, please? Yeah.
Basically, when you apply for these grants, you have to, and I say I have to sign off and say there's an expectation that these buildings will be used as schools for, I believe it even says 20 years. Now, I've asked that specific question, and they have, DAS has basically responded back that the majority of your payments are done after 10 years. It's a smaller amount, so it's not a terrible amount of money that you would have to pay back. I will also tell you that the Board of Finance, I don't want to say they didn't care. They really supported that either way, whether if the town was impacted by that, they thought it was still a valuable use of the funds, even if the town had to pay a higher amount and pay some of that money back because they thought the route should be done either way.
And it wouldn't come out of our education budget?
No, it comes out of the town's basically capital improvement plan.
Okay.
It would not come out of your annual budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Phil, the Finance Committee consists of me and Michelle and Donna.
Correct. Do you want that group to be the one that does that? And I see Donna's hand raised.
If there's no objection from the rest of the board, yes.
Donna has her hand raised.
I have a concern. I'm just looking at the calendar. Whoops. And it's December 8th. I'm not going to be available after the 18th until the new year. And then when you look at our meeting is January 12th, I'm concerned that we're just pushing it later and later and later. If we're not going to know, because you said it's probably going to be a couple weeks before you even have the responses back.
All the responses. So they have to have their questions. I would say, Donna, it would take one meeting for you and you basically set up a 40-minute interview. And you don't have to interview everyone. You could say, hey, we only want to interview these 3 companies, and you do it the week of the 4th. And then your next it would take one meeting, and your next meeting you would, and at your board meeting on the 12th, you would make the recommendation whether or not you want to do this.
My concern is that this is pushing it farther down the road. And we already had, I don't know why I have this in my head, but that we were thinking $30,000 was going to be like the max for this. And who knows when the bids come back, if they're, what they're going to be. If it's going to be like the other time we sent out a bid and we thought, we got $300,000, it was way beyond what we had ever anticipated. So I don't know if it's worth pursuing it or not. I'm just concerned that it's going to get tighter and tighter, plus all those other meetings that are going to be coming up, and it is tax season.
Yeah, I would say for The only, and I'm not sure if this was clear or not, the only meeting that this committee would be responsible for, because I'm basically, and this is nothing new, I act as your building committee when it's a project like this. When it's something like reimbursement, whether it's an oil tank or something like that, and we have to form a building committee, I'm kind of appointed for you as that person, and we run those. When we spend, I say we, the board wants to approve a company, that you do it as a board. And so, you know, I was told that we will have plenty of time if you appoint, and even if you don't appoint that, we would have plenty of time. Basically what happens is I begin the work on the roof if you don't appoint that in January. The number that I was given, and I don't want to say the agency that gave me that number, because it's they may bid on this project, is they said, you know, they thought that was a reasonable ballpark, was 30,000. But I agree with you, Donna. Last time we had a reasonable ballpark, it went up 70,000. So I hear you.
Could we?
You want you, Elena, please, Catherine?
Could we agree to have a drop dead date? That if a decision, either we don't get enough bids in, or the ones you see coming in are exorbitant, or for some reason in your personal judgment, whoever's submitting the bids isn't qualified to do what we want them to do, could we have a drop dead date and a drop dead amount that says, look, if we're not seeing it, we're just going to forget it and move forward, just so that it keeps moving?
Sure. So my drop dead date and for applications, all of their questions, you give them a week for questions. Typically, they may ask to do a walkthrough. That was, which could happen. I left it open in the RFP. My drop dead date is December 23rd. I have to wait until, and this is legally, I have to wait until all of those applications are in. And once they're all in, we have a quote unquote public opening. That means usually I take Donna Latinsik over here with Brenda. We open the bids, we lay them out, and we look to see what they are. And then I would be able to quickly tell the finance committee, look, they came in at 60,000, 70,000, 20,000. You know, what would you like to do? And I could talk to you individually, just get your sense and book from there. I just figured you were not going to want to meet December 28 or 29 or 30. That's why I was saying the first week of January. And I think you're smiling back there, Donna, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're correct.
Mhm.
Is it permissible when you and Brenda and Donna do the unveilings on the 23rd, for you to let everybody on the board know, you know, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of detail.
Absolutely.
We had bid number 1, X dollars, bid number 2, you know, and so we can see the totals. And if whatever the board decides as far as maximum amount, if nothing comes in under that, then then we know, just so you can progress.
Sure. Elena had her hand up, her too, Herb.
Yeah, I don't have her. Elena?
Yes, my concern is that if we meet to take the decision, we cannot really call the meeting a building committee, because there are if we do it as a board, so we will have to probably call it a special meeting. And my second suggestion is to schedule that meeting. If you said January 4th, to schedule it like now in December before all the holidays, because the holidays will start, there will be a lot of that not working days. So we would make sure, and if suddenly we decide to back off, we just cancel the meeting. But at least we have it posted and explained. That's all. That's
Sure.
my concern. Thank you.
So I guess the question for the board is, are you okay with just the finance committee reviewing those applications? You know, they would be basically reviewing them, and if we needed to do any interviews, it would be that group. We'd try and do it in one sitting, and they would make the recommendation to you. I can still send the information to everyone on the board, but the finance committee could be the one to do the kind of nitty gritty work and make the recommendation on the 12th to say yes or no. Does anybody object to that?
So as I understand, I'm sorry, as I understand, the building committee will be, as a finance committee, it will be a public meeting again. So we all, if we have an ability, we can all attend and to know what's going on there.
That's right. That's the question is, do you want it to call it a committee meeting or do you want to call a special meeting on that date? That's the question. Just like Donna said, I can easily on December 23rd have a spreadsheet, you know, generically ready to go, cost, you know, what they're offering, and just send that out to you. And once the bids are open, that finance committee could have access to all of those materials right away. And so, you know, not that that's not your holiday reading, but you could have access to it. So it's just, again, the question of finance committee versus the entire committee, entire board.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Oh,
I
yeah,
say
he probably
something?
can't see. Yeah, he probably
Yeah.
can't see you. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. It's just a quick thought that if we will leave it for the regular meeting, we're probably going to have a very long meeting. But if we'll set up a quick special meeting, maybe it will cut the time during regular meeting and give space
I think she froze.
quickly together. But I don't care really. I'm just thinking. So whatever ways goes.
Well, if you trust the work of your committees, which is partially the reason you have those committees, right, is that you want to be able to let that committee chime in and say, this is what our recommendation is. And, you know, I think just like the committees that recently met, all are in the same thought process right now and recommendations. So again, that's up to you.
I would feel comfortable having the finance committee make the decision.
And then making the recommendation at the regular board meeting.
Recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would support it too.
I would also.
Okay.
I agree.
Or,
I'm fine.
Donna, are you okay with that?
Okay, I guess the finance committee will take care of that, okay?
Can we set the date for that meeting now?
Absolutely. Do you want the 4th? Does that work for you?
Sure, I didn't look, when are all the other meetings that we've got? I don't have those dates in front of me.
It's the 4th of January?
Hold on, let me look.
I just-
What time on the 4th?
You tell me.
I could do 4, but not earlier.
I'm gonna have to do later. Could we do a 6?
I'm pretty well open. Whatever Michelle or Donna.
6 or 7, is 7 better, Donna?
Either one should be fine, so whatever works best for you and Herb and Phil.
Let's
I'm
do
probably-
January 4 at 6 p.m. That way, if we have to do interviews, we're not here until 9 o'clock. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
Would we do the interviews then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why it's important for me to get you that information right away, so that way you can weigh in. And Donna, just I know how you pick things apart, which is great, because then when I talk to you individually, you're going to be able to say to me, "Hey, I really like this about this company. This company left this out," and I can say to you, who would you like to see or hear from? We might have one group that is just outstanding and has the right price, and everybody else doesn't have that package, and you all say, we just want to hear from one group, and we could do that.
Can the rest of the board, though, give us an idea about what the maximum dollar is that they're okay with? Just so when we're going through and vetting it, we know if somebody's way out of line, or if it's kind of close, but they're so much better we can at least say, okay, this is why, you know, these people are $31,000, but they're going to give us this, this, and this, and this. So this is why we're recommending them. Just so
Donna, I don't know if people can give us just a single number, and I'm not sure that if we had different numbers that we would be able to be held to that or vote on it. I think
okay.
you're right, it's a complex package, and we're gonna have to, as a committee, look at the whole package for each offer.
Okay.
Yeah, because.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So the committee is made up of Herb, Michelle, and Donna. If one of us cannot make that meeting, then Laura should be contacted because she's the alternate of the committee.
I can make that time also, so that's fine.
On the plan. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Well, the only thing is, Laura, we can't have 4 people at the committee.
Right, yeah, I understand. Alternate, if somebody can't make it, but I can if they
I just
can.
want to alert you to the fact that you're part of that committee, and we'll see how it goes.
Keep that date open if you can.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that? Well, okay. So you're going to mail something out to us on the 23rd?
We can either, we'll have all the packages are supposed to be here by 1 p.m. That was what we put as our deadline. So we could open them that day and get them out. So they're supposed to give us X number of copies. I think it's 6. And so we'll be able to give you each a package. Herb, you'll probably have drop off. And Donna and Michelle, we can figure out what's the best way to get them to you. Okay?
So you won't email it, it'll be a packet that we'll
Yeah.
get.
It comes as they make the copies for us.
Okay,
Requirement.
okay. Okay, that's good. We're down to financial reports. We have 2 items here, the 2021 budget update and also the COVID-19 reopening expenses. Okay, did you send a copy out of that summary?
I gave you the budget summary for the
November
typical
30th?
budget summary. I did not do a handout or for the other one.
It's a November 30th?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
So that was when Donna ran this report. I put the notes in it. We were hoping to have all this balanced out. I will tell you that the new software is great. However, for Donna to learn all these things in COVID with all the grants and moving parts, it's been a challenge and all the training. So we're trying to update as quickly as we can, but it's definitely been a challenge, and it's really on her department does all of this, so it's a lot of work. As far as program 1 goes, there's you can see what's there. The Title I grant just came in. So that money will be applied to that account. So the 35,000 will come in, will be added to that 52. The program 2, again, a piece of the Title I grant will be applied to that. And there's a salary shortfall there, but we expect this number to come back. And the reason we expect the 57 to come back is because of all the CRF grant that's been spent. Some of that money is going to come back into this account, and that total grant was 200,000. Program 3, those outplacement tuitions, again, still not billed. It takes time to get all those things. There is a salary shortfall there. The IDEA grant was applied now. I think that's new, and we may or may not see savings in that summer school support program. It depends on, we may use some of that money for tutoring, additional services for students identified with special education needs as the needs go. So as you know, that program, it ebbs and flows. Let's just say that. Program 4, there's a shortfall in diesel, but what I'll tell you is we may see a savings there because of we haven't had sports, and I can't predict the spring, but there was no sports this fall or winter, and that money is budgeted, so it may bring that number out of the hole. Program 5, A lot of that, the supply line that's short $10,000 will be entirely replenished with the CRF funds. We're meeting this Friday to start moving to transition those funds. Program 6, again, it's an odd year for professional development. We have some people that are attending some conferences. There's just not as many offerings right now. The stipend positions were just encumbered, so some of that money is going to come out of that 53. We have, again, fewer stipends right now that were encumbered because we're not doing sports. Not all of the, we don't have all the typical clubs. We only have some. So some of that is going to be there. The utilities, those are all have been encumbered. The custodial supply line that's short, all of that money is expected to come back with the CRF funds. So that'll be in the 20,000 plus range that I expect to be back. The system-wide support, again, a significant amount of that is the subscriptions, the Microsoft licensing, or we have licensing for our wireless, those types of things. That's not all encumbered yet. We encumber them when the bills come in. And then program 10 has not been cleaned up yet, but Donna sent me a preliminary tonight, just before the meeting. And it is looking like there's definitely going to be, and again, this fluctuates because when you hire someone, if they don't take insurance, you see savings. If they do take insurance and it's family, it could cost you $20,000. So we're expecting to see right now about 60,000, potentially 72, but that's where your placeholder is for the long-term sub. And so we have to determine some of that money may come out. So that's kind of the picture of it. I estimate that we're going to be putting about $125,000. We'll have a clean number this Friday, $125,000 back into this budget from the CRF grant, because some of those items we paid for directly out of the grant, some items we had purchased and will be reimbursing ourselves, and that money would go back into the grant. Any questions about the budget summary? All right, can I move to the reopening expenses? Catherine, can you allow me to share my screen, please? So this is the, and I can't see you all, I apologize. So we updated this, and this is what we're going to be running off of on Friday. Our expenditure list, we've lumped them into these categories. You've seen this. The total has not changed at this point in time. What we did change on here, and this is the only change, is that the CRF grants is now approved. What I will tell you is when we applied for the CRF grants, I had asked this, the state told us to let them know if the funds that they provided were not enough. And at the time I said it wasn't going to be enough because we thought we were going to be doing an extensive ventilation project. There were leftover funds on the state side. And so we actually were able to have access to additional funds beyond the 205. I'm still working with the state to determine there's not a ton of things that were not included in this 205, but we still may have access to some more items that would give us a larger reimbursement. And so I'm hoping that 205 may creep up. I just don't know if they're going to allow it yet because I don't know if they're going to hold us to what we initially said it was going to be for, which was the ventilation. So I'm working with two of the folks at the State Department of Education. We have a call tomorrow to try and iron out the details, and I will know by Friday because if they don't approve it, then the money gets turned back and it goes towards another district at that point in time. But I can't make things up like, hey, I'd love to buy this now. It has to be something that we've already purchased. So,
Bill,
yes,
those room ventilators that we purchased, are those in that number, the 205?
they are. So the ventilation inspection, the repairs, and that installation at CES and HMS, we included that dollar amount in the 36,000. What I have to check to see, and again, a lot of this depends on when we wrote it. There might be another $4,000 that we could apply to ventilation. That's one area that I'm thinking of. And it was actually a $6,000 project because it cost so much money to open the roof up and maintain our warranty. That might be something that's not in here at this point, and that's what we're checking tomorrow. If they'll allow me to apply that, I will add this to the grant, and it'll be another $6,000 we're eligible for and get the money back, which is great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Phil, on the staffing, on the first item, can you move the slide down a little?
Yes.
For utilities, staff salary and insurance, paraprofessional. The utility staff, the figure was, wasn't a grant for about $50,000?
So this is the cost. Yeah, Herb, this, I know where you're going. This is the cost to get the utility staff through December 23rd. The CRF funds can only be used up through whatever you're purchasing up to December 31st. So this cost has about $22,000 for a paraprofessional, and that paraprofessional was used to be in a classroom for a teacher that was teaching remote the entire entire fall. And then the utility staff cost includes benefits and their salaries through December. Oh, oops, sorry. What Herb is referring to is, and we're going to talk about this in a bit, is this the ESSER funds. We would like to extend the utility staff and put them into the WESS unit, the union, from January 1 to June, and through June of 2021. And the cost of that could be entirely covered by the ESSER grant. I just have to change this to reclassify the cost, and it would cover the utility staff. So that's where the rest of it would come from, Herb.
Okay.
And I don't want to say I like to operate within a budget. I will say I am in all the years of superintendent and administration. This is your buffer right now, and it's I don't want to go into that number, what's in the non-lapsing fund, but you know, if Marcia's pupil services director says, you know, someone just moved in and they're an outplacement, or for whatever reason something doesn't come through and we have to hire additional staff for, and it's all related to COVID, you have a buffer here. And of all the years you want a buffer, it's this year. So that was my reopening expenses.
Okay, do you have anything else on that, Phil?
Not unless anyone has questions.
Okay, I guess there are no questions, so we'll move along in our agenda under new business. And we have from A to J. I'm not going to read them all, but the first one is a special education review.
So Herbert asked to, and Catherine, if you can unmute Marcia McGinley for me while I introduce her. Herbert asked for an update on one of our programs, and this is the first program that he brought up. So I asked Marcia to join us. Marcia's our pupil services director, special ed director, whatever you want to have her title be. She's in charge of special education. And so I thought it would be good for her to come in and kind of give you an update, talk a little bit about her program, and just give you some quick questions, and just kind of give you an overview of the program. And it's really a good kickoff to what's to come for the budget as well. So Marcia, thanks for coming tonight.
Well, thanks for having me tonight. So I'll spend a little time going over some information, just some background information, and then kind of get into some services that we're providing. But I want to say thanks for having me to speak about the special education services in Wellington. I've realized that many of you have a diverse background in the field of education and are most likely familiar with the laws and regulations that guide special education today. However, I'd like to begin by providing a brief overview of special education requirements and then provide an overview of current special ed services in Wellington. So the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA, is the federal law that ensures all children ages 3 to 21 with disabilities have a free, appropriate public education available to them that is designed to meet their unique needs in order to prepare them for further education or to live and work independently. The law requires that the education takes place in the least restrictive environment alongside non-disabled peers to the greatest extent possible. The special education process begins with a referral by either a teacher, an interdisciplinary team such as the student assistance team, a parent, or a community-based provider such as a Birth to 3 program. An initial referral meeting is convened, which is made up of the parents, a regular education teacher, a special education teacher, and a school administrator, and also related services staff such as a school psychologist or possibly a speech pathologist. Students may also be invited depending on their age. The team is called the Planning and Placement Team, or the PPT. The PPT reviews the referral to determine if comprehensive educational testing is necessary to determine if the student has a disability, which requires special education services. Comprehensive evaluations may consist of achievement testing, cognitive testing, language evaluation, fine or gross motor evaluations, and social-emotional scales. At times, students will be referred for further testing beyond the scope of the in-district evaluations for evals such as a neuropsychological evaluation or a psychiatric evaluation. The parents must give consent for evaluations to be conducted, and the PPT will reconvene within 45 days of the referral date to review the evaluations, determine if the student has a disability that would qualify for special education services, and develop an individual education plan or an IEP if the student qualifies. Annually, the student's planning and placement team meeting will meet to review the student's progress and update the IEP. Every 3 years, the student is reevaluated to determine if they continue to qualify for special education services. As mandated by the Individuals with Disabilities Act, special education services at Wellington consists of the following required services. We provide academic instruction, which is provided by special education teachers. We have 3 full-time teachers at center and 3 full-time teachers at hall. We have speech and language services, which are provided by speech pathologists. We have 1 full-time at center and 1 full-time at hall. We also provide occupational therapy services, which are provided by a part-time occupational therapist. Also, we provide physical therapy services provided by a part-time physical therapist. And social emotional services, which are provided by counselors. We have 1 school social worker at center, 1 school counselor at hall, and 1 school psychologist, which is district-wide. He provides services to both buildings. In addition, we have 2 part-time board certified behavior analysis, or otherwise known as BCBAs. They are contracted through EastCon. They're contracted for 1 day a week to collect data, conduct observations, and develop and evaluate behavior intervention plans for students who struggle with maintaining school appropriate behaviors. And lastly, we provide paraprofessional services for both academic and or behavioral supports to students on an individual basis, which is determined by the planning and placement team. We currently have 10 paraprofessionals at center and 12 at hall. So kind of diving a little bit deeper into our services, we currently provide special education services to 84 students in district. Students are identified for services under one of the following categories: learning disability, dyslexia, attention deficit, hyperactivity or attention deficit disorder, which is ADHD or ADD, speech impairment, hearing impairment, emotional disturbance or other health impairment. Typically, those are students with medical conditions. Out of the 84 students, 6 students receive special education services attend parent choice programs at local magnet schools. For these students, special ed services are overseen and funded by Wellington Public Schools. The remaining students attend outplacements, which are determined by the planning and placement team as a released restrictive environment that meets the students' needs. It is important to note that students receiving special education services who move into the district continue to qualify for services upon enrollment. A transition PPT is held shortly after their enrollment to ensure that services remain in place, and the IEP reflects the Wellington School District as the new Local Education Association, or LEA. The Program 3 special education budget currently remains on target with budgeted expenses except in the tuition outplace line. This line will most likely exceed original budgeted expenses due to the increase in students attending parent choice magnet schools. These students are new to our district. We're still gathering total expenses and will present this information at a future meeting alongside with any possible budgetary offsets. In the new world of remote learning, I'd like to provide some brief information on how we are offering remote services to students who receive special education services. During remote learning, whether it's parent choice or district recommended, all special education services continue to be offered through Zoom sessions. The sessions focus on providing instruction on the student's IEP goals and objectives. Case management services are also very important during this time to assist families with their students' learning and social emotional well-being. And lastly, I'd like to highlight a few positive areas in special education this year. As you may remember, we hired 2 special education teachers at the start of the 2021 school year, Nikki Maines at Hall and Stacy Mosley at Center. Both teachers have made positive connections with their students and families and have been strong additions to the special education department. The department has also been committed to enhancing services to students. This fall, Nikki, Chris Tolona, and Marla Picorni, all special education teachers, have attended Wilson training, which is a structured literacy program. Currently, all of our special education teachers are trained in Wilson instruction, which will provide our students who have reading disabilities the necessary skills across grades to continue to make yearly progress. And as Phil had kind of mentioned before, currently we're in the process of building next year's budget, looking at Program 3 with the vision to continue to enhance services for students with disabilities in this ever-changing world. And I'm looking forward to coming back in January to discuss next year's budget projections. So thanks for having me again to talk about special ed, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wow, you covered a lot of ground there.
There's a lot of information.
Everyone will have a million questions too, but good job. Thank you. I just have a couple of simple questions, really. You said you have 84 students. How many of them are 504s? Or is that separate from?
That would be separate. That does not cover 504 students. That just covers those who are identified for special education services.
So it's 84 plus the 504s.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. How many 504s do we have? You have any idea?
I can definitely get you that information. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Now, the other question I have is on remote learning. You know, with the average student who goes home, they work on the computer and so forth, and they probably can work alone, and they don't need too much supervision especially in the upper grades. But with special education students with special needs, it's a little different. So isn't it better to have special ed students in person or in school somehow, and not on virtual or at home?
Mm-hmm. That may be definitely the case for some, and we found that for some students, whether they're special ed or regular ed, they're doing very well in remote learning. We found some students receiving special ed services are thriving on the remote learning. However, there certainly are some that find it more challenging. Those students who have para support in their IEP continue to have para support on remote learning, which has been very helpful for them. It's been nice for them to still have that connection with their para. I certainly recognize, along with all other districts in the state, that there are some students who have higher needs who really would benefit from that in-person learning. And I'm in the process of working on developing those guidelines and criteria for if we do have to go out on remote learning for an extended period of time, that students who have high needs have the ability to possibly be able to come in and have in-person services. So there'll definitely be more information to come on that. I am working with our admin team and gathering information from the state and from other districts so we can make sure that we have a very comprehensive, well thought out plan for those students.
Also, I have one more question. How many outplacement students do we have?
We currently have 3 outplaced students.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Any board member have a question or comment? Just raise your hand.
Okay, yeah, Laura Rodriguez. Just another clarification on that. So 3 outplacement, you said 6 parent choice magnet. Is it 6 there and then another 3 that are outplaced?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's something new for us, Laura, and Marcia and I have had a couple conversations about this, is that we're finding, when a student goes to a magnet school and is identified, if they just, it's a parent's choice to get into those, sometimes it's a lottery. We don't have a lot of say in that. And it's challenging, and we just get the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so Marcia is trying to always work around those things and find a way to support that student, but make sure that we, the Wellington, because we're paying for it, the Wellington Board of Ed and the taxpayers know what we're getting, and that it's in aligned, with the legal requirements that, are in the IEP. And it's, again, the least restrictive environment for those kids. But we've seen an uptick in that, which also equals more money.
Right.
The other piece I'll say is real quick is we have a dynamic special ed staff, including a dynamic director. They're doing a great job. And I will tell you that this is a shortage area, folks. And so when we have a posting for an elementary position, teaching position, we could have 150 applicants in 3 weeks. And if I post a special education teacher position, I'm lucky to have 3 applicants in a month. And we have hired some dynamite folks, and we've been very lucky about that. And just big thanks to all of them for coming to Wellington and making the impact that they're making.
I'm going to just piggyback for a moment on that, Phil, because I do want to give a shout out to our paras. We have the most dynamic group of paraprofessionals this year. And I have to say, on that Sunday, when we came in to just prepare bins and do what we needed to do for remote learning, there were countless amount of paras in the building, which I would not have expected to see them, but they were right there working alongside of us. So I have to give a shout out to them. As Phil said, the special ed department in both buildings is just dynamic this year. And it is just such a pleasure to work with them and see how they really are engaging our students, whether they're in person or remote. And it's wonderful to see. I wish that you can all be there to see it in person, because it's amazing.
Thanks, Marcia.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, I want to thank you very much, Marcia, for your presentation this evening. It was very informative, and it's going to be very helpful for us when we work forward and work on the budget and things of that kind. And doing a great job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You tell your staff the same, that we appreciate what they're doing with this, with our special ed students. Thank you again.
I will do. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the special meeting minutes of October 7th. We also have the minutes of November 10th. We have curriculum committee minutes. We can either do them individually or as a group.
I think, Herb, because not all of us were in attendance of the committee meetings, we should do them separately.
Okay, good idea.
So
Okay,
I move to approve the special meeting minutes of October 7th, 2020.
I second it.
okay. Any comments, questions regarding the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so voted. Okay, item C, approval of minutes of November 10th, 2020. This is an action item. We need a motion.
I move that we,
Go ahead, Ann.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes of the November 10th meeting.
I second. Michelle Cunningham.
Michelle seconded. Okay, any comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so voted. Okay, we're down to the curriculum committee meeting. Curriculum committee met on December 1st and discussed cost estimates for something, curriculum, I guess.
I move that we accept the curriculum minutes from December the 1st, 2020.
I second.
Okay, and seconded, Laura seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, hearing none, the
So,
motion-
Elena,
No, Herb, Elena, Michelle, was that Donna? Did you have your hand up too?
So my question was, I wasn't there, I'm not on that committee. Do I vote?
No,
Do I abstain? Do I not vote? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be
No,
doing.
you abstain.
Okay.
No.
abstain.
You have to abstain.
Okay, Donna abstained. Okay, item E, the approval of the finance committee meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the December 4th, 2020 Finance Committee meeting.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and
I
seconded.
second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion is passed, and we're now down to remote learning on snow days.
right. So, I'm sure you've seen this in the news. The State Board of Ed is allowing districts to provide remote learning on snow days this year, and it's only for this year so far, and it's up to the district to determine that. We gathered some feedback from parents and staff just to on the option to do remote learning this year on a snow day, and it would have to be a day where it would just be unsafe to transport students. The parent survey had 39 people saying, just enjoy the snow day. Leave them alone. Let them enjoy it. They had 46 parents saying, make every snow day a remote learning day. And then we had 79 parents saying, well, we want a balance. We want some days to be remote learning days, and we want some days to be snow days. The staff results were just as distributed, with some staff supporting the idea. Others had lots of questions about just some logistical things, and some disagreeing with the concept, just saying, let's let the kids be kids. Let us have the mental health day to sleep in. They like my 5 a.m. phone call and just to have the day off. To be able to do this, we would need to make sure students and teachers have their materials. and you know that there's not significant power outages in town. That's not the point of this. You would have to make sure of that, and I say you meaning really me. We could consider this after a certain number of snow days. You know, if this is one of those years where you end up with 12 snow days and, you know, maybe after the 4th or 5th snow day, we want to reconsider it, you could do that. So it takes a little bit of planning to make sure students have what they need. Some districts have gone the packet route. I am not a fan of the packet route, I'll be honest with you. I think if we're going to do the remote learning, we try and do it exactly like we've done with live or recorded instruction. There's some live times just for the kids, just with like we run our 8:40 to 1:40 block when we're remote learning. There's some uncertainty, you know, around this because some students on a snow day are at grandma and grandpa's or they're at a daycare provider, and we need to make sure they have access. We need to make sure our staff, even though we might have power in Wellington, but if there's outages in other districts or other towns, we need to make sure our staff has access to the internet. And you know, some of the comments also revolved from parents around our family members are out there removing snow. They're not going to be, you know, be able to be in Zooming with their teachers. So, you know, even though the emotional kind of the mental recharge is really a benefit to staff and to students, you know, I'm looking for some guidance from the board. This was a really split survey. It wasn't crystal clear. What we saw in the change in the calendar for the early release Wednesdays, we didn't see that in this one. And it was the same survey. There was people were all over the place here. And it may just be easier at this point in time because they're not saying, the State Board of Education is not saying we're going to be able to do the same thing next year. They're only granting this for this year. Maybe we just say at this point, let's see how it goes for a month, revisit it in January, or do you want me to plan for it? So I'm just looking for some guidance.
Herb, I'm not sure if you can see both of us on the screen with their hands up. Sure. The question I have is that it would probably be helpful to have some set of certainty also for parents. So maybe if we cap the number of days, say 10 or 12 or whatever the number is, and after which then it'll have to be on a learning from home basis so that we won't have to go, you know, to July.
Yeah, right now I think our last day is scheduled for the 16th of June. So we do have days built in.
Right.
Anne has her hand up, Herb.
Anne?
I think the power issue is huge because usually school is called on days when power goes out somewhere or another. They seem to go hand in hand. And I think that inconsistency could create a lot of problems. So
I agree. Whatever we do should be consistent.
We want to make sure everyone has access. Laura has her hand up, Herb.
Yeah, so Laura Rodriguez, I absolutely agree with both what Michelle and Ann said, but I think I like the idea of the first maybe 3 or so being snow days, giving that little bit of break. But, you know, having been in the classroom on those years where we had like 10 snow days, you know, you're like, I'm like losing all this instructional time. But that power issue is huge because, I mean, just this last storm down here, we were fine. Northern Wellington lost power. So it's not even just teachers in other parts, you know, coming from other parts of the state, which is an issue. You've got to teach, I'm not sure where your teachers are coming from now. When I taught there, we had a teacher coming from Marlboro, you know, I mean, all over the place. So that connectivity issue is really, really huge.
It is, and you know, the outage map is helpful for Eversource, but it only takes one teacher to be out of power, and that class loses access, and we would have to have our staff notify us of that so we could, you know, put some alternate plans in place. But then that person has to use you know, do they have to use a sick day? What do they do in that situation? It's one of the things that we weren't sure how to get around.
So maybe we should make the cap longer than 3 days, Laura. Maybe it should be closer to 10, which would be the extent of the year. And assuming that if we don't have power or if the snow is here, that it's affecting other towns in the region too. I think folks have had plenty of remote learning this year. They're still going to catch up by the end of June. So I don't think it's, while it might delay the beginning of summer, I think it's still the same number of days.
Michelle, can I make a recommendation that you say 8 instead of 10? And the reason
Okay.
why is that if we lose those days, I think that would put 8 would put students to Friday, I think. And then they wouldn't have to come back for 1 day on the following week if it were that number. But if it went beyond that, then we could start try and keep them on that. It gives us a buffer.
That's it.
Fine with that.
I'm like, the other concern with that though, we go 8 days and then we say, okay, now we're going to be remote. And on that 9th snow day, half the town doesn't have power.
It's the other part of the problem.
You know, some of those, it's so hard because some of those earlier snow days may have been snow, but no loss of power. You know, depends what kind of snow you're getting. So
You could do 8 days and then it's call it as needed after that,
Last day.
so that at least we have a sense of certainty. At least the first 8 are going to be off. And then beyond that, if we know we're close, those are going to be later in the season too. We'll have had a chance to see how the winter is.
Sorry, it was 7. I was wrong. It's 7.
the 7. Then we just hope to not have a huge.
Could you do it the other way around? Instead of assess each snow day, and you can tell if it's a snow day because the roads aren't clear or they can't get the school's sidewalks clear versus the massive power outage. And so just go for, if snow day number 1 is just treacherous roads, have them do remote learning. Snow day number 2, half of Wellington is out or a quarter of Wellington's out, you know, and treat it differently so you don't end up, I mean, we want the kids to be able to get outside and have their summer and have their freedom, and the same for the staff. But there may be, I mean, there used to be some snow days where I'm like, why the heck did they call a snow day? You know, there just did not seem to be any reason for it. And then there's other times when we were out of power for 10 days. It's a totally different ball of wax.
Right. And those 2 or 3 inches of snow, Donna, that stops at 10 a.m. are the most annoying calls because by noon it's beautiful out, and we're not talking about power outages. It's just poor timing to run buses.
Yeah.
And those are perfect days for remote learning. And so that's the balance here that we're trying to figure out.
I mean, I'd be willing to just give you some guidance and let you make the decisions, because you're going to make the decision whether the school's closed or not. We're not going to be getting a phone call. You're going to be making the phone calls.
Correct. Elena has her hand up, Herb.
Okay, Elena?
Yeah, I would totally agree with Donna that I think superintendent should have all flexibility possible in this question. Just we cannot predict every weather, and so that's where I would think the most reasonable decision is your decision and the fastest decision.
Michelle has her hand up, I think.
I think the question that you have, Phil, is you want some input from us as to where we stand, and it sounds like you're hearing a number of different results here too. I just want to put it out there that what might be easier for you, even if you get mixed results from us, is to just make a decision one way or the other, because the consistency as a parent is are we on, are we off? It looks like it is. What if we have power? What if they don't? The not knowing, and the not knowing at 6 a.m. is the worst. So I would make a call and then be consistent about it.
Yeah.
Tracy has her hand up too.
Oh, can you unmute Tracy, please?
Sorry, my husband's making noise. I agree with Michelle, I think, too, about the parents wondering, because as a board member, I don't know if anybody else does, but I have friends who call me and say, well, what do you think is going to happen? I say, I'm not the superintendent. I don't know. Wait till the call comes. So I think having that, if you have to find a different alternate for your children, whether it's a snow day or not, giving them a couple days. And I don't even want to get on my soapbox because I'm totally against taking away snow days. So I'm just going to stop right there. And I also do not agree with making staff have to take a personal day if they don't have power, but school is in session. I don't think that's fair.
I agree.
Just because they live in a different town.
Yeah. Can you unmute Ann, please?
Yeah.
So muted.
There we go.
Okay, I think we're better off with a consistent plan, even if it is just for 7 days, because it must be very difficult for the teachers to overnight go from classroom learning to distance learning. I mean, the seesaw lessons must take quite a while to plan. And so I think if we could kind of, be consistently snow days for 7 days. And if we happen to have more days than that, then we could, go from there. And that would be my suggestion.
The benefit of the seesaw lesson right now, I think I don't think we have a single classroom in the district that at this point in time doesn't have at least one remote learner. There was one.
They're preparing them anyway. Good point. I forgot
There
about
was
that.
one class that was full, and we just had a shift of a couple kids.
Okay.
So there for them, it's still. Don't get me wrong, it's still hard work for the teachers.
Mhm.
Again, there's no clear solution. So if what I hear is leave it up to me, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to weigh in. And I will, just as I always do with parents, in our families, I try and let them know ahead of time is hey, tomorrow is looking like it's going to be 6 inches of snow. It's looking like there's not going to be power outages based upon the forecast. So please be prepared for distance learning tomorrow, and try and stagger it. And let's face it, right now families are coping, they're doing the best they can, and if someone says my kid's not attending tomorrow, they're not going to attend tomorrow. So
Okay, Phil, you just make the right call, that's all.
I'll try.
If not, you'll get phone calls, or I will.
Yeah, they let me know.
No. Thank you very much, Phil, on that. Let's hope it doesn't snow too often. Okay.
Oh, no. We need lots of snow because I'm a skier. Don't go there. It's winter in New England.
Needs to snow at the right time, just not
Weekends.
So power outages, that's all.
Okay, moving on. The negotiating committee minutes are not on the agenda because we met on the 7th, I believe.
Yesterday.
But we reviewed the West memo of understanding, and that's on the agenda for your, it's an action item, really.
Yep, and I can share some information on that.
Of Herb and Elena. And we are recommending the approval of the memorandum. Phil, can you run through that?
Sure. So the WESS union president and I have been working for a period of time on this. The teachers union has an MOU. This group is looking for a reasonable MOU at this point in time. And it's around the COVID-19 expectations. And to be honest, it's expectations for staff, and it's expectations from administrators too. What we expect to be held to, and what we expect members of that union to be held to. And this MOU would add if you remember, the utility staff can only be hired for legal reasons through December. It's a certain number of days, and that will be up this month. And so they would have to be added, and that's a piece of this MOU. It's I think it's 14A, B, C, ABC. And so basically the way we wrote it, and the finance committee agreed to this and the negotiations committee agreed to it, is that we accept the MOU as it's written. We would be adding these utility staff through the end of the year as they're needed. And then, you know, at that point, if we wanted to extend it, you would have to do another MOU. These positions, and I said this to both groups, are only COVID times needed during COVID times. This is not a forever position. This is the extra cleaning, all the deliveries, the coverage of classes. I will say that the WESS union they've not approved this yet, not because they haven't met. It's just their leadership, and not from the Wellington side. It's the union side that they work with. Somebody was unavailable. They sent it to their higher ups. But Nicole, who's the president, supports this, and we believe their union would support it as well. And so what I would like to see you do, and I'm recommending that you approve this, is that you approve it and we're ready to move forward with the utility staff, because we're going to need them when we return from after the holiday break. And then if the WESS group has any changes, we can make those changes. You can approve those changes in January. But this would be adding members to their union. So I believe that they would accept that point. So we could just make those changes then.
Okay, does any board member have a question or comment they'd like to make at this time? This is an action item, and I would entertain a motion to accept the 2021-2022 the West Memorandum of Understanding for the utility staff. I hear a motion.
Michelle and Ann both raised their hand, but I don't know if they had questions
Go
or.
ahead, Michelle.
I can't see.
Oh, sorry, Herb. Michelle Cunningham, I move that we accept the West Memorandum of Understanding as it relates to utility staff.
I second it.
Okay, Lena seconded. Any comments, questions at this time relative to the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, abstentions. Motion is carried. Okay, we're down to the 2021-2022 budget workshop calendar. This is a busy time for board members.
It sure is.
For the superintendent too.
I attached
We have
the.
more meetings coming up.
Yes, I get to see you guys a lot. You're going to be tired of my face. I attached the draft budget workshop calendar for you with the programs that would be reviewed each night. Again, this is a draft. Last year, I believe you took all 4 evenings to do this, but it's up to you how you establish this calendar. This is what started a few years ago, and it seemed to work, but obviously this is your calendar. You determine if you want to make adjustments, and the best way to move forward.
Well,
Do we have it?
the January 9th meeting would be just before the regular board meeting.
February 9th, correct.
If we needed it. Okay. Elena, was that you?
No, Michelle.
Michelle?
Michelle Cunningham, I have a question about the timing with the Board of Finance. Do we have any idea yet when we would need to present to them by? These dates seem relatively late compared to the usual way that we work.
I believe that we're okay for CIP and this calendar at this point in time.
Okay.
Where I present, I looked at the dates.
Does any board member have a conflict with any of the dates, January 19th, January 28th, or February 2nd? If not, then we will move to adopt the Wellington Public Schools 2021-2022 budget workshop. And we will work on the budget during that period of time. And in the first meeting, it'll be the center school program, the hall school program, and transportation.
Herb, do you need a motion and a vote on this, or are we just moving
I
forward?
would think, let's make a motion so we have it.
Okay, Michelle Cunningham, I move that we accept the 2022 budget workshop schedule as presented.
Okay.
Second that, Tracy Anderson.
Okay, it's moved in second. We accept the budget as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so voted. Okay, moving to item I, capital improvement projects.
Yep. So the Finance Committee met and reviewed all the items in the capital improvement plan that was developed with input from our maintenance custodians, our administrators, myself. The Finance Committee recommended some minor changes, moving things in years, and the document was sent to each of you, and it reflects those changes. You know, it's up to you if you want me to go line by line for all of these things, put it up on my screen. I gave you an explanation of all of the items. The items in green on the main spreadsheet are the new items. You know, and once you approve these items in the year placement, just remember that it doesn't mean that's where they're going to be, because the CIP committee can move these anywhere they want in the 5-year plan. You are just making a recommendation to them. And, you know, we try to, when we did this, we did two things. We tried to balance out each of the years and have some priority projects. Then we also did a new yellow row on the main spreadsheet. And that yellow row was just trying to show the cost without any of the school building items, the land, the consultant, things like that. So it's up to you if you want me to go line by line or speak to the new items, or if the committee members speak, what would you like to?
Well, the CIP is going to meet on this too, because you'll have to go before them, and the placement of any of these items may change.
Correct.
You know, because they shuffle things around quite a bit too. But which ones are the priority? Which ones do we prioritize here? Was it?
So in year one, you have a fire panel at center school and hall school. You have a window replacement at center school in the upper wing. Those are all single pane windows. The committee had asked me to get some research to find out if Public Works was going to be doing any major paving projects or chip sealing that would connect to our school projects, and they're really not. So the CES seal lower main parking lot in Reline is in year one, and that is to protect your investment. There are some cracks in that, and those cracks are only going to get bigger with the rain getting in there and snow and the ice, unless they're sealed. We have the clock PA security strobe system at both buildings, center and hall. You have the painting of the library, which would be in year one after the roofs are put on this summer. There's a new item, the HMS Gym Floor Refurbishment, and that was new. And that was around, we've gotten complaints about our gym floor, whether even if it's clean, being slippery. And we talked to some folks from different districts, and one was Bolton, and they actually strip their floor every year all the way down to wood. We haven't done that in a number of years. And so that would basically level the floor, fill it, they would repaint it, and put on an oil, whatever they recommend, but we believe it would be an oil coat finish, and that should significantly help us, so the floor is not slippery. And then the heat on the gym stage, I became aware of this, and Jason Phillips teaches on the stage at Hall School, and apparently the main heating system has not worked for years. I did not know that. He has a small heating system. I was told kids were wearing jackets when they're in that room. That needs to be fixed like yesterday. So that was put into year one of the CIP plan. So those are all the year one priority projects. The building committee consultants are on there because it's in year one as well. But again, it's up to the board if you want to adopt this whole plan or you want to move things around. Again, the committee went through all of these items and placed these where they thought made the most sense, and tried to balance them out.
Okay. The committee has already met, and we shuffled quite a few things around, and these were these things that we prioritized and put in the first year. Some of the other things were thrown over to the second year. Land for the new school, for example, $750,000. But this is an action item, I believe, and this would give Phil an opportunity to take this to the CIP. I don't know when they're meeting, but I think they have one coming up pretty soon. So
Just got their date. I think it's the day after your January meeting is when I present to CIP. But I have to have all of the projects. I fill out a completely different form than what you get. That goes to the CIP committee, and it's one form for every single project, and that's due December 31st. So I fill out all those forms and I provide all this documentation to them as well. So if you don't have questions about it and you're okay with the placement that was completed by the committee, I would urge you to complete it, and I can get working on the forms.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the CIP map and just items that are on the spreadsheet that we have here.
I second the motion.
Michelle seconded. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the motion. All those in favor of the motion to accept this presentation, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? So voted.
Thank you.
Okay, Phil, you're all set with that.
Move it along tonight.
Yeah, good. Okay, we have a Board of Ed calendar, 13-month meeting calendar. And I believe this goes to the state, doesn't it, Phil?
This goes where? To the state, you said?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So these are our regular meeting days, and the state gets a copy of this. And we meet each month, second Tuesday usually, I think, at 7 p.m. Has everyone checked these dates to make sure that they coincide with your calendar? And
I did.
no.
They are all the second Tuesday of the month. I guarantee it. I checked them all.
Okay, I'll entertain motion to accept the 2021-2022 Wellington Board of Education calendar of meetings.
I second it, Elena Testa.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions, so voted. Okay, so much for the new business. We're now down to old business, which is the 2021-2022 Wellington Public Schools calendar. There have been some changes in this and some modifications, I believe.
Yep, and I can share you. I can kind of give you an update. I met with the group that's the Region 19 superintendents. We actually met today. And that's Ashford, Mansfield, Columbia, and E.O. Smith. We're ahead of all of them. So we are very aligned. I shared this exact calendar with them. And I believe that they are all going to adopt, if not the same exact calendar, almost the same. And the reason I say almost the same is their contracts could be slightly different, where they have an additional professional development day or something like that, where they put in that day. But the start date is consistent. The holidays where the professional development days are in October. The alignment of the April vacation is the same. I shared the change that you asked was to consider making the 23rd of December a full vacation day. And so that change has been made. I shared that with them. They may take a half day that day, but it doesn't impact us. That would be okay. So there's 188 days on here contractually for teachers. There's 182 student days. There are two items that I want to make sure that they're corrections that I saw tonight when I was proofreading this again. In August, in the text, it should say August 30 and 31 staff development, because the 29th is a Sunday. And then under January, I believe Martin Luther King Day is the 17th. It should say 17. Other than that, those are the only changes. The last thing I'm going to share with you, and I've heard this floated, I have not received a formal request, but I know at the Selectmen's meeting last night, Selectman Blessington did say how much he liked voting at Hall School. And so in a year where we can provide remote learning, it was a very easy adjustment for us. It was actually a good test for our remote learning plan. If we are not allowed to do remote learning, we would, it would be a day off for either those students at Hall, or could be a day off for the district. I don't know if you want to entertain that opportunity or only reserve that and say, no, thank you. I'm not sure how the board wants to handle that, but that would be the only other item, November 2nd, that could be a change. Anne has her hand raised. Can you unmute Anne, please, Catherine?
I'm sorry, I have kids running around upstairs, so every now and again I have to mute myself. I did hear that last night, Phil, at the Selectmen's meeting, and one possibility, would that be a good PD day? If they do decide, it sounded like everyone was sort of committed to moving that as our new polling place. But could it possibly be a PD day for teachers and a day off for students?
If I do that, I have to, their contract,
Yeah.
they would have to agree to that, and I'd have to move a professional development day from someplace else.
Okay, just a
date.
suggestion, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we could talk to the union about that if that's an adjustment the board wants to make.
Or see if it's something they would be interested in doing, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure how the board wants to handle that. If you want to wait a month, you could always approve this calendar next month and see if you get a formal request to, I'm not sure that the Register of Voters, it was a lot of work for them to move everything over there. I'm not sure if they're going to want to do that every year because it was obviously a big presidential election.
Yeah.
Do they need that next year? I don't know, but that's that's for them to ask me about use of the building. But I think if you're going to approve a calendar, it's a good thing for us to know that. Mansfield does the same thing. They have to close their schools because they use their buildings as polling places.
Yeah.
But it's the first year we've done it. So what's your pleasure?
Is there any problem with delaying the vote till January?
No. All you're going to do is give them a month to make the request if they make it at all. And I could even solicit that to the Registrar of Voters so that I have not done that yet, just to find out if it's something they're even considering. And then I can bring that information back. That's the only item that I see at this point, unless you have any other changes. That would be the only change that would be on this.
Want to table it, Phil, for?
Yeah, we could. That's if that's the easiest thing to do. If you would
Yeah.
like me to go ask them, I don't have a problem doing that. Because then
That makes sense to me.
I'd rather only publish the calendar one time.
Okay. I move that we table the 2021-2022 calendar of the Wellington Public Schools until the next meeting.
I second that motion.
Okay, Michelle seconded. Any questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? None? Okay, we'll table it and pick it up next time. Okay, under present to speak. Do we have anyone out there, Phil, that's want to say a few words?
You are in the meeting and you're on a computer and you want to go into participants and raise your hand, we can unmute you. I think there's only 4 people here. They've just been hanging out. Erica, Jan, Jason, Erica's gone. Oh, Erica's got her
Erica
hand
has
raised.
hers.
There you go. If you want to unmute Erica, Catherine, please.
Good evening, Erica.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback on the conversation about voting. I want to publicly, I mentioned this last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, thank Superintendent Stevens, his custodial staff for all their hard work to assist our registrar of voters in a safe and fair election here in Wellington. Our registrar certainly would not have been able to pull that off without their tremendous support. And I think it just goes to show the way we collaborate between town and schools when we needed a place to allow for social distancing. The Board of Education and the superintendent made that happen. The same way, if we have the ability to help out with our public works and putting up some new facilities for your kids, we are happy to do that when we can. So it's certainly a pleasure being able to work in conjunction with the Board of Education in that manner. So thank you. I will say, Phil, I did mention after the discussion that happened at our meeting last night to one of the registrars that was in, the other is out of the office this week, that a selectman suggested having voting there all the time. While it was wonderful, it was a tremendous undertaking, and it would be up to the registrar of voters to determine that. I don't know if it would benefit it on a regular basis with the number of voters that we typically have come out. Certainly maybe something for discussion in a presidential election. We always tend to get more voters, but I'll leave that decision to our registrars. That's the work that they do. But I did mention it to them that the conversation may come up. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Anybody else present to speak? If you want to raise your hand, Jan, Jason, Melissa. I think you're good, Herb.
Okay, we're down to board comments at this time. Well, first of all, I want to thank Marcia, for our special ed director, for coming in this evening, giving a fine presentation. She gave us a pretty good background material on a special ed program that has been operating in a very difficult time during the pandemic. And we look forward to seeing her again during budget time, probably. Also, I think Erica is right in that we do have tremendous cooperation between the town and the Board of Ed. I think it makes a big difference in the operation of both, and we want to be helpful wherever we can. And I agree, using Hall School, at first I was a little apprehensive about it because of the pandemic was at its height, but it worked out well, and it was a really good location. Parking was great, facilities were fine, and everything was really great. So that we look forward to probably doing that again in the future. Michelle's letter will be addressed at a future time, but I just want to point out that her letter is in sync really with our bylaws, because our bylaws simply say that a special meeting, the chairman of the board can call a special meeting whenever I deem that it is necessary. But it also has a clause, and it must call a special meeting when requested by 3 members of the board. And we have 3 members of the board who signed the letter requesting a special meeting. So I will look into that and get back to the board on that and the superintendent. Any other board comments at this time?
I'll start off. We can just jump in. I wanted to thank Superintendent Stevens for his decisive action in closing the schools for the quarantine over the Thanksgiving holiday. It's not an easy decision to make over a weekend, especially after having the difficulty of having so many staff out. But I think decisiveness is really in short by these days. And so I really appreciated the fact that you went ahead and did that, and the school staff and everyone else who were mobilized to make that happen and so successful. Really shows how much the Wellington community cares about its kids and its education. So the fact that we do not have a substantial spread of COVID in schools is due to the fact that you've all been so vigilant. And I can only urge our families and the rest of the community to continue to be vigilant. The vaccine's not here yet, and we can only prevent the schools being closed down again if everybody's super careful for another few months. So thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other board member have any comments this time?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, if that's okay. Elena Testa. My comment is more a question, which I would like to be addressed by the superintendent and the Board of Selectmen, as I have a very serious misunderstanding of what happened last night during the Board of Selectmen meeting when the building committee was picked. There was only one representative from the Board of Education appointed to the building committee, which is Anne. From our February 11th meeting, we had a decision that there would be 2 representatives, and that the decision was totally approved. We all agreed on it, 2 representatives. It was supposed to be Herb and Dan. So it's very disappointing for me to see the selectmen chose to ignore decision of the Board of Education, unless there was some misunderstanding. I wasn't present at that meeting. So that's my comment question. I hope we will address it at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Okay.
And
Anyone else who has not spoken so far?
Donna has her hand up.
Donna Cook, I looked at the date and it's hard to believe, but it's near the end of 2020. So I would just like to wish each and every one of you a wonderful Christmas, holiday season, whatever you happen to celebrate, and a happy new year.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Anne has her hand up, Herb.
Okay, Anne.
I just wanted to congratulate the teachers who did a phenomenal job of the remote learning. I had a 1st grader and a 4th grader, and the day ran as if they were in a classroom. There were Zoom meetings for every whole group activity, It was all brand new learning, which I thought was phenomenal, followed up by great seesaw activities. The bins, Phil, worked great. We went and picked up our bins, and yes, they are pencil boxes on steroids. They had everything you could possibly need: crayons, markers, math manipulatives, everything you could need. So I thought that was brilliant, and it worked really well. I also appreciate the fact that we had that 8 days, and if in the future we do have to shut down suddenly again for a longer period of time, I think everybody knows what to expect, and everybody knows how it's going to work. So I think it was all around wonderful. And also to thank Marcia for coming and updating us on special ed. Elena, I was at the meeting last night, the Board of Selectmen meeting. I didn't feel it was my place to bring it up at that time. I thought about what we had talked about, and I don't believe there was a letter representing Herb for the second time around. I believe, Herb, you submitted a letter the first time they requested them, but there may not have been one last night. I could be wrong, but that was my understanding. And I didn't really feel it was my place to speak up about adding another position to the committee, but maybe that's something the board could discuss with Erica at some time.
Thank you, Anne.
Which was voted unanimously on February 11th meeting. So that's not even about letters, it's about decision of the board. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? If not,
I think Laura was going to raise her. Laura's raising her hand.
I was waiting for the end. I wasn't sure if Tracy wanted to go because she had her hand up also.
You can go first.
Yeah, I mean, Donna stole what I was going to say. So I would just, definitely wanted to thank just the teachers, the administration, everybody at school for truly an amazing fall semester with all of what's going on. I am really impressed at what you guys have made happen for the children of this community. But I definitely wanted to go with 2020's, like we're almost there. And I don't even want to say 2021 is gonna be better. I don't want to jinx it, but the vaccine's on the horizon, and we're finishing this year. It is gonna be better. And I do wish, everybody have a wonderful holiday, whatever you celebrate, that you take a lot of deep breaths and just enjoy family if you can. And 2021 is going to be better. I know it has to be. I'm knocking on wood here.
thank you, Laura. Okay,
Tracy was last.
Tracy?
Oh, I'll just reiterate what everyone else said and say how much I appreciate that we are living. It takes a village, because it really does take a village to raise our kids. And so everybody pulling together, no matter what's needed, is just makes a whole bunch of difference for morale for the whole town and schools.
Correct.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, hearing everything, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year, unless you're on the committee.
Soon.
Okay, we'll
I'll
see
be
you
in touch.
later. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, all.
Right.
Oh, do we have to vote to adjourn?
Oh, we do. I make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
So,
I'll second it.
Yeah.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Bye.
9:05. Have a good night, all.
All right.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Night.
Right.
Catherine, just shoot me an email again when you